This tutorial is going to cover quarter one grading for middle school and high school teachers who teach elective or core classes. If you teach a links class, grading is slightly different. So the first part of this video, we're going to talk about the resources that we should have at our disposal while we're doing quarter one grading, for just double checking things to make sure that we know exactly how grading is done. So you can see here, I'm already on the tech tutorials for PowerSchool Gradebook, and it's organized a little bit different this year, but of course, if you found this video, you've gone to the quarter grading or you found it in Take Note. So I like to have that as a resource for myself ready to go. The other thing I like to do is have the middle school handbook for grading, as well as the high school. So depending on what section, or sorry, what division you're in. And the reason I always have those open when I do grading is so that I can see when the due dates are, as well as what the expectation is. So in middle school and high school, the same place, I can find the dates. So it tells me the end of the quarter, the deadline for entering final grades, and the deadline for entering comments. So in high school, the same thing. I can find the deadline for entering comments, for grades, and when the grades will be sent home and when the end of the quarter is. The other thing I like to check is in the comment section, what will be required for comments. So in middle school, you can see generic comments are required at every quarter. So Q1, S1, Q3, and S2. And then individual student comments are required for semester periods only. So S1 and S2. That differs from high school. As you can see, high school comments will be generic for all reporting categories, but then we give individual comments S1 and Q3. Okay, so those are for the year-long courses. Again, if a student's receiving in high school a 3 or below, they get an individual comment, and the same thing goes for middle school. If students are receiving a 1 or below or have gone down significantly, they also get a individualized comment. So I do like to reference the handbooks just to make sure that I'm clear on my expectations and the deadlines. And then in high school, also please note that we have two different ways of grading. If you are a core elective course, you grade the way that we're going to be going over in this video. And if you teach a links course, you will grade slightly different, and there is a separate tutorial for that. The other resources I like to reference before I start grading is in the division official documents, whether it's high school or middle school, you will find previous reports and progress reports. So remember, quarter one, we do progress reports. It's not an official grading period, but it gives parents and students an idea of how they're doing. And then semester one is a report card. That's official. It stays with them. Quarter three is a progress report. It's not official. And then semester two is official. It's a report card. At the end of the year, they only have two columns that appear on the report card, S1 and S2. All right, I like to look at how the report card actually looks if you are new to ASB or if you're new to our course. So I've pulled up a few here. So I've opened a high school report card. And so you can see here, it explains what the learning behavior scale is, as well as the 1 to 7 scale, which is different than middle school. Middle school has listed out the learning behaviors, and they use the same academic scale for those, but it's a 1 to 4 scale. And then in the courses, you can see example here of how the report card looks. Quarter one is given. Always we give 2 learning behaviors for high school and middle school, and then we grade the academic reporting category areas that we've covered so far. At the end of the semester, all academic reporting categories will have been covered. Remember, they do roll over. So if you taught reading analysis first quarter, it would roll over into your first semester and roll over into your quarter 3. So at the end of the year, our report card has no empty spots. Different in high school is that our course gives learning behaviors, academic reporting categories, and then also an overall course grade, which is calculated only by reporting categories that you've then weighted. So this year and beyond, quarter one will have a course grade given as well. All right, and then at the end of the year, they'll have one more final column. So quarter one will have a course grade this year that we will be going over as well when we do this tutorial. So now we're going to hop into the gradebook and see how do we actually enter and check our grades. So when we are ready to enter grades, I'm going into the class that I'm going to be grading, and the first thing is to make sure that we have all of our assignments in. So by now, hopefully you have graded all of your assignments and they are into the gradebook. The great thing about this gradebook is that it will automatically calculate or actually trend the standard-based grades that will appear on the report card. One thing to note is many teachers are getting into the habit of adding learning behaviors to all of their assignments. So if you are someone who adds learning behaviors to all their assignments, you do not need to go in at the end of the quarter or the semester and add an extra assignment. However, if you do not add learning behaviors to your assignments as you go through the year, you will have to, at the end of every quarter, go in and add an assignment for learning behaviors. Okay, so I'm going to call this one end of quarter learning behaviors. This will be a summative. And again, we always do collected only for all of our assignments. Then I'm going to navigate to the standards tab. Before I do that, remember that if you want to select multiple classes, you cannot do that for academic reporting categories unless they're the exact same class, the exact same grade level. But for learning behaviors, you could select multiple classes and grade your learning behaviors or create that assignment all at once. So let's jump into standards. And so for our learning behaviors, it is the same for middle and high school. We all have 2 top tier standards: responsibility and work habits, and participation and collaboration. Underneath those, we have subcategories. There are 4 skills: 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 responsibility and work habits. You may choose to grade each of those individually by selecting them, or you may choose just to do the general. If you want to just give one grade for responsibility and work habits, you click here, general. What you cannot do is click on this top level. It will do nothing and kind of mess up your grade book. So you have to click one of the subcategories. That's the rule always for this grade book is if you have subcategories, you must select the subcategories and not the main category. That has to do with the calculation. So for this learning behavior, I'm going to choose the general for that, and then I'm going to choose general for participation. If you choose the individual ones, that is great. You're going to be giving more specific feedback in the gradebook. However, on the report card, those different subcategories will average together to then spit out one score for responsibility and work habits. So only 2 learning behaviors show up on the report card. Then I'm going to save and close this, and then you can go ahead and score your assignment. So once you've clicked in here, you can see what the thing is, and I'm going to give a D, and I'm going to go down and give another D, and go down and give one more D here. Or you can say all my students are a certain level, and then you could go in and manually change if you needed to. So step 1 was simply to make sure your A+ grading assignment list has all your assignments that you'll be grading for this quarter, and they are scored. It's important to know that when you are in a certain quarter or a grading period, the order that you've added assignments does matter, because what the computer is going to do is it's going to take the 3 most recent scores and then weigh them 45, 35, 20. That will be how the final grade is giving you a suggested trend to. Okay. The other thing that's important to note that if you have a summative assignment, of course, by default, it's going to be counted towards the trended grade. If you have a formative assignment, for example, this first assignment, I'm going to edit this assignment so you can see inside of it. On the standards that I've added, these are selected. Whenever you added a standard, by default, it's counting it towards the grade. I've had to uncheck that because I do not want it to count towards the grade. This is a formative that I do not want to influence the trended grade. So your formatives can influence the trended grade when you select, by default it will, count in grade, or if you've unchecked that, they will not influence the trended grade. I do not need to save that. So that is just that first tab for A+ grading. When grades are not influencing the final trend, you'll notice that they are purple and italicized. When they are influencing, so this is a formative that does influence the final trend, they are black and not italicized. So these influence, but these do not. We're going to get now into checking the final scores. So technically, if you have this screen, all your grades entered, your learning behaviors entered, automatically grades will appear and you are done. But as teachers, it's going to be our job just to double check those final reporting categories to see if we're happy with the grades that are trended by the computer. So I'm going to go back into A plus grading, and this time I'm going to go into standards. So I try to remember this by we do standard based grading. I'm doing my final grades standard based way. And I click on this, and it shows my students on the side. Always make sure you're in quarter one, of course. And then it will show what the grades are trending towards so far. So when you're on this A plus grading standard screen, what I want you to look at are the reporting categories or learning behaviors. We're going to actually just skip to the academic ones and just do the example from there. But what happens is when you have subcategories, these subcategories will influence this final reporting category. And that same thing here. So we have this student getting a 5 in this main category. And we're wondering, how does that 5, how is that happening? Well, that is happening from the subcategories. So it's looking at, let's see if I can get more columns on this page. So here we go, perfect. This subcategory, sorry, this main reporting category of investigating, analysis, communicating is being influenced by these scores. If you do not have subcategories, it's even simpler here. So when I look at these reporting categories, so here I have general participation and collaboration. Let's look at an academic one. Here I have knowledge and understanding of genetics. So this score is automatically calculated based on all the assignments I've added for it. If I want to know what's influencing that, I simply click on this graph and it shows me how my student is trending. Okay, so even though they got a 3 on one of the summatives, these other grades are influencing it to trend it towards a 5. Let's get rid of that. Here, the same thing. If I want to know how that 7 is given, I can see here that it's taken the last 3 and calculated and trended this towards a 7. Remember, the most recent is counted with 45. This one doesn't count, it's purple. And then this one and this one counts. So I'm trending there towards a 7. You might notice that there is a orange circle at the bottom of some of these. Those are the grades the computer is asking you to check. So if it has an orange circle on the bottom, it's asking for a professional judge to come in and say, so the teachers, to come in and say, hey, look at this trend. They scored better before than what they're actually getting. So you might say, you know what, they actually ended at a 6 for this. This was, a really hard exam that, they were off that day. I actually am going to override this and I'm going to give that student a 6. Whenever a grade is overridden, it shows you a triangle and it tells you what it used to be calculated at. If you want to go back to it, you can just say, no, go back to the calculated grade. So that is how you can override any grade you need to. So again, this is the main screen where you can just come through and double check your grades, that everything is how you want them to be. But I want to show you 2 other screens here. So one screen, they both are in students. So if you want to see a different view of this, I think standards progress and standards score sheet are valuable to review. So if I look at standards progress, I'm going to save this. You can basically see what the student's report card is going to look like. Remember, only top level standards are going in. So I can see in responsibility and work habits, they'll be getting a D. Participation, they're getting a D. If middle school, it will be a 1 through 4. And then they're getting these scores and then this one. So you can kind of see here what the report card will look like. I also like this view because if it's later in the year, you can see what they got before and what they're getting now all in one place. From this screen, you can also see, for example, this genetics, they're getting a 5, and it says I should look into that because it has a professional judgment indicator. Well, how many assignments are influencing that? Oh, 5. If I click on that, it also takes you to that screen I showed you before, the small one, where it shows you the trend. And remember, on the bottom, you can see all the grades that are counted towards the final grade. Anything that's purple italicized is not counting towards that grade. And then right from here, I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to override this to a 5. Oh no, it's already a 5, but maybe I want to override it to a 4. And I could do that from that screen as well. So that screen was standards progress, and it goes student by student. So now I can navigate to a different student and see that same screen and say I need to go into this L. Why do they have an L? Oh, L and then D. Actually, I think they're at a D now, so I'm just going to override that to a D. The second screen I want to show you is in students, and it's standard score sheet. What this one does is it shows you a different view of seeing actually what we saw before is for one student at a time, you can see all the assignments they've done. And then you can see how they are influencing that top category grade. So I'm going to get to the second page here where I'm actually in. So this was the genetics one. They're getting a 7. Why? Because of all these grades. So both of those views are useful, and you could go ahead and check those out when you feel ready for that. All right, so what we've done so far is we've added all our assignments to our gradebook. Then we've gone to the A+ grading, and we've looked at the standard sheet. Basically, everything on here is what gets generated onto the report card. And now our final job is to add comments. You can add your comments, and you have to add your comments, not can. You must add your comments into this column. So if it's Q1, it'll be Q1. If it's S2, it'll be S2. Right now we're in Q1, so we have to make sure we are in Q1. And you can double check that here. If you're in something else, click on the Q1. Then when you click on this box, you will see that a comment box appears. Whatever you type in here will appear on the report card. If it's generic comments, something like this quarter we studied this and students accomplished this, you can click that box and then say fill all, and it would say comments only. So now all of my students will have that same generic comment. If this box is too small, remember you can always click up here and then you have a larger comment box. But just when you do the fill all, you'll have to go back to this screen so you can get that fill all button. If you are a middle school teacher, that is all you have to do. If you are a high school teacher, you have to double check the course grade. Here I'm not seeing what the overall course grade is for this. So you actually need to go into your settings and change those display settings to make sure that you've checked on that you do want to show traditional grades. So reporting categories are standard-based grades, but we also give one course grade, and that is the traditional grade. And I'm going to say save. And now when I go back into A+ grading standards, it shows the calculated grade here. And you can see what that percentage is. You may also override if you feel that it's necessary. Remember, the course grade is only for high school, and it only considers the academic reporting categories and not the learning behaviors. The last thing I want to mention is that I do have 2 other tutorials on comments specifically. And the reason is that yes, this generic comment bank is very easy to use. You can just type in something, but if it is a time where you need to give personal comments, please check out how to use the actual comment bank, because there's a lot of great things in there that you can set up for yourself. And also, even when it is generic comment time, you can use the smart text feature. And that looked a little bit like if I was to clear these comments out, I could add people's names in this. So do check out generic and comment bank tutorials if you want to make your generic comments even more personalized. If you have questions, please reach out. Otherwise, happy grading.